Welcome to all of you, parents and grandparents, family members, and students to Putney's 86th graduation. And welcome to the class of 2021. Seniors, before we begin, please take just a minute to thank the faculty and staff who helped get you here. And now you can take off your masks. All right. That wasn't for all of you, that was just for the seniors. I hope you'll also take the time today to thank your parents and your grandparents and whoever else it is that's made it possible for you to be here. And to all the families out there, I want to give you the thanks of all of us who live and work here at the Putney School. You have been wonderfully supportive of the school and our community, and you have trusted us with your children. You've been helpful in so many different ways. For most of you, this is the first time you have been here in more than a year. For some of you, it's the first time you've ever been here. So we want to welcome you. It's wonderful to have you here, and it's wonderful to be having our first public gathering in about a year and a half. And to the seniors, I get to call you seniors for just a few more minutes. Congratulations, you made it. I am so very proud of all of you. 36 of you arrived as ninth graders in the fall of 2017. And so you clearly have a lot of stick-to-itiveness. Others of you joined as 10th, 11th, and even 12th graders and quickly became a part of what makes this class what it is. 5 of you have had to do the year remotely, and you have stuck with that as well, which has not been easy at all. You're a group of strong-willed and determined people. For some of you, determined tips over into downright stubborn. And stubborn can be a very good thing when it's deployed in a good cause. Many of you found a goal or a focus early on in your time at Putney and stuck with that throughout your whole time here, whether it was environmentalism, one of the arts, the farm, or something else. Conforming to anything does not come easily to you. The fact that you worried that your class didn't really bond as a single entity is recognition that you're a group of rugged individualists. And at the same time, there are enormously strong friendships among you, which will last long after you have left here. Your 9th grade fall, as you may remember, regardless of whether you were here or somewhere else, was a time of fires, hurricanes, and earthquakes across the United States and elsewhere in the world. It did feel a little apocalyptic. This year, senior year, has felt a little apocalyptic in slower and less dramatic ways, but harder, at least here at Putney. You were asked, all of us across the country and the world were asked, to sacrifice for the sake of the common good. And although there was some disagreement and some grumbling, you did that. And you kept doing it, and you kept doing it. And nobody caught COVID on our campus. I want to thank all of you for what you have done for the community as leaders and role models, not just this year, but over your whole time here. You have been part of the basic working of the school. In the work committee, standards, EPC, dorm heads, the tech team, and the labor of being student heads of school and trustees. You are also working in other ways to make the place better, both more just and equitable and more fun. The international ambassadors, the diversity committee, Spectrum, the outdoor program, and the amazing swap. None of this was required of you. You stepped up because you wanted to and thought it was important. And you stepped up in so many ways that don't have records or labels just because you saw something that needed to be done. Until this past year, mostly when Americans have talked about sacrificing for the common good, they have mostly talked about military service, about going to war. Many of Putney's early graduates went almost directly from here to World War II, and several of them died there. This pandemic has killed more Americans than all of the wars the United States has been involved in combined, except the Civil War. And in the US, the pandemic became a cultural civil war between those who thought it was not reasonable to be asked to sacrifice for the common good and those who thought it was right to do so. I care deeply about each one of you, and I devoutly hope that this will turn out to be the only war of this kind, or the military kind, that your generation has to participate in. Although I confess that I doubt that will be true. But just as every older generation has its historical touch points, this pandemic will be a touch point for your generation for your whole lives. And I hope that your lives at Putney, and this year in particular, will stand in your minds as an example of what can be accomplished when people are willing to pull together, and that you will remember that it was worth doing in the end. And although this year has been hard, you are stronger for it and more ready to deal with all the other curveballs that will come your way. You're shortly going to be scattering. I was really very impressed by the range and variety of colleges and programs that you applied to, and those that you chose from your many choices. As a group, you're going to be living in a wider range of places geographically than you came to Putney from, which seems to me to be a testament to an education which broadens the mind and encourages courage. You're heading off to 17 different states and DC, while here a third of you spent trimesters abroad in Mexico, France, Germany, China, England, and Morocco. And quite a few more of you would have gone this year had that been possible. 26 of you are going to liberal arts colleges, 19 to research universities, and 11 to art schools. That last is an unusually large number even for Putney. I know that you will keep in touch with each other, and I look forward to seeing you back here before too long. I was actually touched by the fact that although we told alumni they were not invited to graduation this year, a whole lot of them snuck on campus yesterday. And now I'll introduce to you Josh Laughlin, Chair of our Board of Trustees.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. Thank you all for being here, parents, grandparents, siblings, and other family members. It's because of you that we're here today. You're the support system that has allowed these young folks to arrive where they are. Faculty and staff, administrators, you have been the shepherds. But more than anyone, I want to thank Emily Jones for bringing us through the last 16 months that have been so incredibly difficult. Her leadership has not only made this time possible, but has also made it meaningful, educational, and personally rewarding. She sets a bar for all of us that we can only hope to rise to. As most of you know, next year will be Emily's last year here at Putney. That is both daunting and exciting. It opens new doors for her in looking to her future and presents us with both a challenge and an opportunity to continue and grow from the legacy that she and Gordon leave for us. We are looking to rise to the occasion, and the future is bright. I'm so grateful that we are able to hold this event in person. A year ago, the graduating class had to have their diplomas mailed to them. This is a much more fitting conclusion to the years of hard work that you have all put in to arrive at this moment. I'm here because my mother graduated in the class of 1954. I graduated in the class of 1982. My wife, Alice, graduated in the class of 1987. And now, one of our sons, whom I'm sure some of you know, Ledley, is graduating today. Perhaps needless to say, Putney School has played an important role in my life. I'm honored to be the chair of the Board of Trustees of an institution that holds integrity and community as some of its most important standards. The last year has been an incredible challenge for all of us. I personally have lost family and friends to COVID-19. My life was disrupted and altered in ways that I would not have imagined. I often find myself sapped of energy and wanting for normalcy. I think we're headed that way. I have, however, grown from this trying experience. My awareness of inequalities in today's world, even though I was previously aware, has grown many-fold. The pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement have highlighted so many aspects of our world that demand our attention. My hope for all of you is that you are able to be conscious of and attentive to the challenges that your generation faces, but that those challenges do not overwhelm you and lull you into submission. You can all lead your lives in ways that will make the world a better place, but do not allow that task to prevent you from enjoying and embracing the journey that is waiting ahead of you. Putney has prepared you well to appreciate many of the joys that you might otherwise overlook. Remember to take the time to thank your waiter, look at the night sky, thank the person cleaning the floor, and never forget that the cows do not feed themselves. One of the most important lessons you can take from your time here at Putney is that being present and participating in all aspects of your life will be rewarding. There's much work to do, and we all need to show up to do it. While you have been here, the amazing faculty, staff, and administration has been by your side to remind you that you are part of a community. Once you leave this hillside, you may not have as close a support system as you have enjoyed. That means you will need to remind yourselves. Wherever you go, remember that you are not alone. Many before you and many after you will also leave this remarkable place with a diploma and an unclear mission ahead. They have flourished, you will flourish, and those who follow you will flourish. Remember that even the wisest amongst you will be eagerly exploring a new path, and we will all stumble from time to time. Remember also that Putney is here for you when you need it. The relationships you have built and the memories you hold will stay with you for your entire life. Friends, colleagues, mentors, and this place are here to stand by you. This and the support from your families who have made it possible for you to be here today mean that whenever you need, you can always circle back to find the support that you have come to enjoy. I look forward to hearing stories of all of your successes. Congratulations, class of 2021.
Thank you, Josh. Next, we have our student speakers who were elected by the senior class. Jaden Hammond is first. And following Jaden, Reed Lefevre.
I can't believe I'm giving this speech right now. There are so many reasons why I can't believe I'm giving this speech right now. Reason one, I had an interaction. I haven't had an interaction with a sane person since February. All year, all I thought about was wearing my mask and staying 6 feet away from everyone. When the recommendation changed to 3 feet, all of these dormant thoughts rushed at me. Even the craziest ideas hit me, like that it might be fun to speak at graduation. Reason two, what's really funny in this moment as I stand before you is how I thought I wanted to write this speech. If you have ever had a writing class with me, you know exactly why that's funny. How is it that I'm giving this speech right now? Reason one, you all asked me to write this speech. To be honest, I thought about hiding, but when Emily called me, I couldn't act like she was confusing me with another black girl because I'm almost the only one here. So with nowhere to hide, I figured I owed this one to my class because of how my experiences with each one of you has shaped me over these 4 years. Within the first week here, I saw how the creation of experiences relies entirely on the students. If you wanted something to happen, you had to make it happen. Someone made my first classroom party happen, but the smells coming out of that pitch black classroom in New Wing took way more than one person. The music and the odor were fighting for who was the funkiest. There were 2 types of people who came to that party: people who were looking for fun and people who made the fun. Someone would come in and persevere through the smell, but deterred by the people or the music or the vibe, and then leave, and they would rarely do it in silence. I cannot be in here. It's way too hot in here. This song reminds me of middle school. I got bullied in middle school. Even the quietest ones would make a dramatic entrance once they made sure everyone was looking, like make a disgusted frown, aggressively shake their head in disapproval, and then leave in the same style that they came in. It's crazy how contagious that negative energy can be. If I had anything better to do that night, I would have followed right behind them as some other people did. But as any freshman would, I sat and waited for something to happen. Sure enough, a group of 4 people busted through the door with excitement on their faces and enough energy to transcend the musty air and uplift everyone in the room. Just like that, it went from pity party to classroom party. And then the negative Nancys came back, not to complain, this time to indulge in the atmosphere that the makers just made. An upperclassman leaned over to me while shrugging their shoulders and goes, "It's only as good as you make it." And then I was like, dang, they're so right. And then one day, the lunch menu said, "The Putney special." And I thought, there is no way to make this good. I'm looking around, reevaluating where I am and how I got here, when I see people opening their mouths to eat it. How are they doing that? Why are they doing that? I was prepared to bond over being bitter about the lunch. Instead, I was caught being the negative one, surrounded by people finding joy and experimenting with condiment sandwiches, innovation that excites. I realized that the only thing keeping me from enjoying that lunch was myself. So in efforts to embrace the Putney spirit, I grabbed the stalest bread, the juiciest tomato paste, the chunkiest peanut butter, and I stared at it. I was proud of myself for even considering to eat that. Then there's A.M. Barn, winter A.M. Barn. Let me set the scene for y'all. After a trimester abroad in Cuernavaca, Mexico, the city of eternal spring, I was assigned to A.M. Barn. I went straight from Mexico to feet and feet of snow. I was assigned to live in Gray House, the dorm farthest from campus, and for my work job to be the infamous A.M. Barn. Most of the crew lived in the same dorm, and we arrived all together in family style. Each person had their preferred task. Some people fed hay, checked the small animal barn. I, of course, loved feeding the calves. Some of the oddest people preferred the gutters. Once we figured out that the work had to get done before anyone could go to breakfast, we decided to race through each chore for efficiency and fun. We were actually lighthearted about it. Having a good crew made it easier to wake up before the sun to face the smelly barn. One morning, I woke up, layered up in 3 sweatshirts, covered my hair in a plastic bag so it didn't absorb the poop smell, and opened the door to trudge up to barn. The snow was up to my thighs. I have a tendency to exaggerate experiences that register as traumatic, like this one did. But being from Georgia, my snow encounters are limited. So I remember this one really clearly. I also somewhat remember the memory is less clear that upon seeing the mountains of snow, I conceded to the temptation of my bed. Much more vividly, I remember being called into work committee later that day. I guess only 5 people showed up to A.M. Barn that day. I thought about how any morning I go to A.M. Barn, I could be one of the 5 people, and that possibility was sometimes more of a deterrent than the races were an incentive. When I took a break from thinking about how my skip was justified, I saw how not showing up can turn into a Putney epidemic of apathy and how I played a role in its spread. Doing your part in anything requires showing up, and I know we have all felt the pain of being the only one to show up, whether it's being the only one hyped at a classroom party, or the only one who showed up to your work job, or the only one willing to compost, or the only one who really wants gender-neutral dorms, or you've organized an activity that everyone wants to enjoy but no one is there to help set up or clean up. It's especially discouraging when you have worked so hard and thought you were making something happen. I know firsthand almost too well how sometimes it feels like this school takes from you more than it gives, especially with the disapproval of marks, badges, and honors. Especially during these COVID times where we had to prioritize everyone's health and safety so that we could coexist. I wish we could have spent more time acknowledging how exhausting being relentlessly considered it is, and how being together is just as much an accomplishment as it is a privilege. Being a boarding student is already this big commitment with not much room to opt out. When we all decided to come here, we committed to quarantining twice. For a small percentage of us, that meant quarantining twice. Once before you got to school, and then again once you arrived. During the second quarantine, for the interesting decision of a 5-month straight stretch of school, I was in the middle of applying to college. One school I was looking at was outside of my comfort zone, and it took me a while to build up the courage to risk writing an application. The small amount of audacity I had was fed by the people living in my dorm. These people surrounded me mostly because of COVID protocols prohibiting me from being around anyone else. You see, I locked myself in my room in order to race to meet my final deadline for this application. I decided I couldn't show up when the Putney School quarantine experience, which should be trademarked, relied so heavily on everyone to just show up. My Hughesby friends brought me food, and they checked on me every couple of hours to cheer me on. They showed up for me, and maybe it was just that they lived there and couldn't leave, but it still felt like they showed up for me. They were more than any mark, badge, or honor. I finished the application and came out of my room to a pile of work to catch up on for classes. And when that school wrote to tell me I was accepted, my dorm mates were there to celebrate me. Nothing can replace that feeling. There are many, many things I won't miss about living in a dorm, but the relationships, while inescapable, are ones I will always be grateful for. I have come to love my dorm mates like family, even though you sometimes may want to. You can't opt out of family. I didn't mean to bore you guys with all of those stories, but John told me I needed at least 4. The main point I hope I got across is the importance of being intentional about the energy you bring anywhere, because it's contagious. We all know what it feels like to benefit from someone showing up for you, and we all know how bad it hurts when no one makes it. When you are brave enough to be passionate about something and passionate enough to make it happen, you reap the ultimate reward. I'm sure there are some studies somewhere about how positive and negative energies are contagious. I didn't have time to Google it, but I've lived it enough to know that as a fact. Bear with me for this analogy. When you add lukewarm water to a hot bath, you've made it closer to being lukewarm. Be hot or cold, but pick one. Don't be lukewarm. No one positively remembers a lukewarm bath. That's just a failed bath attempt. I think I'm just really looking forward to going home to take a bath. For weeks, I knew what I wanted to say for this speech. But when the time came to write it last night, I caught myself trying to... I caught myself trying to say it in the least passionate way possible. I wanted it to be easy to write and for it to sound good, but you simply can't have both. And by the time I realized that, it was too late to quit and not give a speech at all. Even on those rare occasions when we encounter the baddest, worst, most not good thing, we can get through it with ease because everything is only as good as you make it. And boy, do we know how to make it good.
Okay. Oh. Hey, you guys. So, I've been thinking about this speech for a while now. And I mean a while. I very clearly remember at the end of sophomore year coming home after graduation and having a shower. It was the best shower ever. not lukewarm, blazing hot. And while I was in the shower, I thought to myself, what would I say if I was the graduation speaker? Well, I'm washing my hair and I think, oh, if I was graduation speaker, I'd give them the best speech they'd ever seen. I'd be sharp and funny and I'd have something to say. Well, here we are almost 2 years later, and I wish that me writing this at 1 o'clock in the morning could have told shower me that it doesn't work that way. God, isn't it amazing how things come back around to bite you? I'll also tell you that the amount of people who are interested in what I'm going to say right now is astounding. I've gotten everything from, oh, you'll be great, just be yourself and let everything come naturally, to, just keep it short and sweet, make people laugh, it'll be fine. So when I found out I was doing this, Magda actually told me, she said, Reed, just don't make it one of those theater kid speeches. Well, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I can't help what I am, so. And last night, while I was stressing about this speech, Mark told me, he said, Reed, so help me God, if you make fun of me on stage, I'm gonna come up there with a hammer to stop you. I guess he forgot his hammer today, so. And then James told me that I should just start roasting people. So with all this conflicting advice about how I should do this, I didn't know what to do. I don't have any advice to give. I don't have any genius ideas to share. I don't do well when it comes to cheesy things, and as I understand, these kind of events are breeding grounds for cheesiness. So I had a really tough time deciding what I wanted to say until it hit me. It's so obvious. It's almost the elephant in the room. This school, this place, it's not the same place it was when we came here. I am, of course, talking about COVID, but also about the people who left us along the way. Our class saw Kalen as the fuel for a fire in this place. And we are among the few who remember how beautiful Sing could be. And when he left, we saw how Duilio turned every song sad. We saw how one by one senior classes filtered out until they left only us to tell their stories. We remember Lauren, who was so passionate about his classes that he would start to tear up at times. No longer. We remember a time before Karen Guten Tag. And after all the countless changes in people, COVID came and dropped a nuke on this school. I don't mean to make this speech the speech where a young person talks about how horrible everything is. But come on. I mean, that's a fair statement. Our class has not had it easy. And it hasn't exactly been great either. Even amidst all the chaos that we've lived through, even after all the change, frustration, and anger, go back and do it all over again. I don't know if I would have changed it. I've always said, I live for the drama in this life. And I really mean that. There's gonna come a time for all of us when things become boring and stale and dry. And we'll be working in an office job, doing some repetitive tasks. As we'll get older, we'll settle into routines. I dread the day when the most interesting thing to talk about is the news. When the day comes, I'll look back and think, wow, I remember when there was drama in my life. And when you live in extremes, like each of us has these past 4 years, it teaches you something about how to live. It's about the big things, but it's also about the little things. It's about staying up till odd hours of the night, talking and talking with friends about ideas that are too big to comprehend and too complicated to actually know what you're talking about. And then saying goodnight only to meet them 5 minutes later in the bathroom while you brush your teeth. It's about having a paper due the next day and not enough time to finish it, and sitting in the library till it's dark and you're the only one left and stressing out, but then looking out the window and watching the snow fall in the lone light on the side of the building. It's about the last card burning and reminiscing about friends who left and laughing about awkward relationships and having a great time. But it's also about the walk back, when nobody says anything but for a few words, and when that's all you need to realize that this is the last time we have together. It's about the big things, the big dramas like COVID and politics, but it's also about the little things like the way people laugh or the mist after it rains. So I lied to you when I said I had nothing to talk about. Magda, I'm aware that I probably made this a theater kid speech. I also lied when I said I didn't have any advice. So I'll leave you with this. The world is big and dramatic. Nobody could have predicted these 4 years we've had. People and places change so much you can't recognize them. But love the drama so you can love the little things more. I hope that each of your lives are filled with as much action as a soap opera.
Thank you both. That was wonderful. And now we ask that you join us in singing Wild Mountain Time. The seniors will lead us. And now Larry Chang will introduce our graduation speaker.
All right, I'm here to introduce a very special guest, Natasha Bias. So, Natasha Bias first arrived at Putney from the South Bronx as Tasha Osborne. Since then, Tasha has been connected to Putney in many different roles. She was a four-year senior when she graduated in 1988 as student head of school. She has been a class agent for her class, a trustee since 2016, and a parent of 2 Putney students. Tasha is a lawyer and a prosecutor in Maryland, and before the pandemic coached her children in basketball, lacrosse, and soccer. She continues to find ways to be a contributing member of the community, sharing her Putney experience with others. So without further ado, please welcome Tasha Bias.
Well, good morning. My. I'm not used to speaking with microphones because I project. Can't shut up. But I was surprised, and I'm still humbled, by the invitation to be your speaker. As you just heard, I'm a liar by profession. I'm a lawyer by profession. I love that joke. It never gets old, I'm telling you. It never gets old. But anyway, as a litigator, I have drafted persuasive arguments and have honed the ability to think quickly on my feet. But with all the many years of practice, many years of talking, arguing, persuading, talking, I couldn't quite figure out what words I would share with you that would be impactful. Impactful for you as you end your experience at Putney and leave the Hill. When I was sitting where you are, and I think actually I was sitting like over here in 1988, I remember not thinking of or focusing on the message that the graduation speakers were sharing. Straight up. I was too focused on trying to figure out who worked on my diploma, what my diploma would look like, what my classmates' diplomas would look like, how much I would cry at the end of graduation, and keeping it real, how loud the cheers would be when my name was called. And I share this to say to you that I understand that in this moment, you have other things that you're thinking about, and that I would not be offended if you just use my voice as background noise. I will make this brief because I know that I am standing between you and your diploma. But before I begin, I must say that the following statements, thoughts, suggestions, opinions shared in this speech are solely those of mine, one Natasha Bias, aka Tasha Osborne, along with contributions from various sources, but not to be attributed to my mother. Happy birthday, Mom, it's her birthday. My children, my family, friends, fellow Putneyites, the faculty or administration of the Putney School, the Board of Trustees, or any other entity or person with whom I've had association with. June 13th, 2021 is here. And you all are about to take your exit from the Hill. Well, most of you, of course, are here physically. You have 4 classmates, I believe, who are virtual. Don't take for granted the work and sacrifices that you and others have put in and made, which allows you to be here today with one another. We are still in a pandemic, and you have been fortunate to have been in and been able to remain in a community. And you have been privileged to be in an environment where people uncomfortably suppressed personal fear of the unknown and got to work. Since the fall, in order for this community to live and learn together, you all have, for the most part, strictly followed protocols of social distancing, quarantine, mask wearing, hand washing, sanitizing, and minimization. For a Putney student, that's not a small feat. It is not Putney unless you see someone jumping into another's arms or sitting in another person's lap or just touching each other somehow. There were 4 party tents erected, a portable building for 2 classrooms, 25 pop-up tents so you all could still enjoy activities. Since the fall, while in this community, you have experienced 4,286 COVID-19 tests. And as Emily said, no one while on campus caught COVID. And I applaud you for that, all of you, because due to your work, you were able to maintain this healthy space. I would like to share a couple of things that I have observed and learned through life experience, and some of which wasn't reinforced by my Putney experience. When I thought about the events of last year, the pandemic, coupled with a trifecta of the killing of Mr. Ahmaud Arbery in April, Amy Cooper's call to the police on Mr. Christian Cooper in May, and the May killing of George Floyd, 2 questions came to mind. Is hindsight 20/20? And can people, while being afforded 20/20 vision, because this was on video, continue to deny the existence of racial injustice and inequity? Hindsight is defined as the understanding of a situation or event only after it has happened or developed. See, with looking back on an experience and occurrence, you can see how things went wrong. 20/20 vision is considered perfect vision, that is having vision with clarity and sharpness. The year 2020, or 2020, forced many of us to face what some of us have known through experience all along, and yet many millions continue to take their convenient seats in the land of denial. That is how my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, can be sour for others. With hindsight being 20/20, can we see how the human experience of colonization, patriarchy, enslavement, and oppression, which coats the foundation of this country, means that our country rests on shaky ground? In order for us to successfully move forward and change, we must first come to terms with the facts. Not his story, not her story, but the story, the truth. The story of the human experience on this continent, and looking at our privilege and place in it. You here on this hill have rededicated yourselves to doing so, but the work must continue. It cannot be a good feeling, a fad, like wrapping a bandage over a penetrating gunshot wound so that the top layer hides the blood that seeps within and beneath. As a child, I did not know what color, and I did not know that race was a man-made fabrication as a way to justify oppression. But at Putney, I did confirm through personal experience that hate and racism is learned. As a senior, a dear friend of mine and I, Paula, were in the class of human behavior. And in addition to dissecting a pig's brain and having to memorize all its parts, we also volunteered in a daycare facility. One of the students there was a child of a staff member. And as 4-year seniors, Paula and I had known this child since he was an infant. We actually babysat him a number of times. We knew him and he knew us. And you see, during the time that I was here, we had sit-down meals in the evening. And at least once or twice a week, members of the staff and faculty would bring their children to dinner, even if they lived off campus. So one day, Paul and I were at the daycare center, and Sam asked Paula what was on her face. Paula touched her face and to see if there was anything there. She didn't notice that she had anything on her face. And then she says, "Is it still there?" And he said, "No." He said, "Yes, it's still there." And I forget, because this was 1988, I forget if Paula asked or if Sam pointed out that the stuff was also on her hand. We then realized that he was referring to her skin tone, her beautiful dark chocolate skin tone. Now, let me remind you that we were young and we had never experienced someone realizing that our skin tones were different, not in such an innocent way. Well, Paula told Sam that her skin tone was the way it was because she drank chocolate milk. I couldn't believe that she actually gave that explanation. But as an 18-year-old, how do you tell a 4 or 5-year-old about skin tones, about race? He was happy with that answer, and he moved on. Paul and I still laugh about that today. But that was a great example of human behavior. Racism, anti-Blackness, homophobia, and sexual orientation discrimination, religious discrimination, xenophobia, and ableism is all taught. It is all learned. I have heard some in power and with not so much power suggest and encourage that we who are different should come together, because once we come together and we are together, we see that we share more in common, that we have more in common than not in common. And through our recognition of what we have in common, we are open to each other, and then we can accept one another. Well, when you first hear that, it makes sense, right? As we spend more time with each other, we get to see that we are more alike than different. Then fear, which is hate's fuel, will dissipate. But I want you to join me for a moment to just dig deeper behind that premise. And I hope that you will see that it's not enough, that this will not move us away from ignorance and hate. I mean, we're human beings, right? Why can't that be enough? Why can't that be all that we have to know? We all understand and know that we need air to breathe, food to eat, and water to drink to survive. Don't we all know that the heartbeat is the greatest tell that we're actually alive? Why must I recognize myself in you before I can accept and own that neither of us are inferior or superior to each other? Should I have to see you or even know you to understand that you deserve dignity, decency, and love? Seems simple to me. I mean, it really does. Love. I like love, actually. Love is a contrast of hate. And actually, love is innate. But of course, it needs to be fostered. And although not everything in this world is about you, I hope you know that it all starts with you. While Putney continues to find its way to improve, it has provided you with a space where you can discover who you are authentically. And hopefully, this has led you to understand and love yourself. I mean, really see that you are worthy of love. I mean, like, each of you are worthy of love. And love yourself for not accepting labels. Love yourself for labeling yourself. And when you love yourself, then you can share love with others. You don't have to hate someone because they are more successful. You don't have to call and judge on other people to do things that you believe is best. I am actually an idealist. I do believe that love can conquer all. And in the world where I live for work, I see sexual abuse, child abuse, drug abuse, senseless violence, murder. Actually, as I was walking up the hill, I got a text that a young man who was shot actually died in my county. But I still believe that love can conquer all. Empathy, the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. The capacity to place oneself in another's position. And you don't need to spend time with a person in order to do that. You are 18, 19-year-olds moving into a wonderful phase of life, actually. And just with your Putney experience, your life experience that you will embark is personal and only yours. Do not let yourselves be defined by your experiences of success or failure, joy or trauma. Don't become paralyzed in one chapter in the book of your life, but continue moving forward, right on. Rose Tremaine tells us that life is not a dress rehearsal. No, you cannot undo or redo what you did the day before. But if you are lucky to wake up in the morning, as I'm always grateful to see the sunrise, you have the opportunity to introduce a new act. You can choose to do something different or make improvements. Hold yourself accountable for your mistakes and apologize. Try to work through any trauma that you have experienced, any trauma that you've experienced, so it doesn't fester and manifest itself somewhere in the future in your life, or you transfer it to someone else, your child or other loved ones. We are all privileged on some level. Some of us by the color of our skin, the gender with which we identify, your access to wealth, your knowledge and experiences that you've had. Whatever it may be, recognize it, own it, don't be ashamed of it, and don't shy away from it, but share it. Use it to uplift others. I hope that you have learned while you were here at Putney to think outside the box. Consider alternative viewpoints and recognize that there are several paths to a destination. You should not be afraid of hard work or dirty work. I mean, you all had to shovel shit, right? I mean, am I right? I mean, right? You have the ability to work with those who you might not like, right? With whom you disagree. And that's important because even though you disagree with someone and you might think they're wrong, the fact is that even a broken clock tells the time correctly twice a day. Don't shy away from conversations because they're difficult or sensitive. And I believe you guys have been encouraged to not do that. Engage in face-to-face conversations. Try to do that. Please, try to do that. Engage in face-to-face conversations so you can see one another. You can receive one another with maturity and respect. Know that you are accountable for your words and your actions as well as your inactions, because your silence and doing nothing means a lot. Never ever get comfortable in the seats of a spectator where you comfortably point and complain. But when faced with any issue, regardless of how minute or important, first look in the mirror and ask the rhetorical question, if not you, then who? And if not when? And if when, why not now? And then you get involved. As Jaden indicated and shared with you, being involved and making your own experience here was important. And that continues in life. Energy, whether it be negative or positive, can be contagious. So try to stay on the positive side. I wanted to send a special shout out to a group of people: Addie, Andres, Avalon, Bailey, Roden, Charles, Daniel, Ella, Eli, Gabriel, Hannah, Hayden, Ian, Islin, Jaden, Janice, James, Jaden, the boy, Jaden, the girl, Joe, Josiah, Karen, Kit, Tula, Larry, Ledley, Layla, Leo, Lingwin, Magda, Maru, Michelle, Noah, Posey, Gwen, Reed, Sage, Sherlyn, Sophie. You are four-year seniors. And a special congratulations to you, my fellow dear four-year seniors. Just because you are labeled a four-year senior to educate many others, of course, as Emily said, it's not because you were here for 4 years as a senior, but that you came onto this campus as 13-year-olds or 14-year-olds. And you were here, and you stayed, and you were able to stay through the mistakes, through the following, through the leading. Now, the four-year seniors aren't alone in that. All of you seniors have had the opportunity to experience Putney. And I hope that while you were here, you made that experience great. I know that things have been hard, things have been trying, things have been frustrating. Many things have occurred with which you do not agree. And the fact of the matter is, welcome to life. I used to tell my children that karma is a blank, and that what comes around goes around. But the fact of the matter is that was just a way to control them. The fact of the matter is that good things happen for bad people, and bad things happen to good people. And you can't exist and try to do good things for others thinking that you will reap the rewards in the future, whether it's here or in the afterlife. You have to do what is good for other people because that is what is within you. You don't owe anyone anything. Your parents, your grandparents, other people have supported you to get you to where you are here. So you don't owe anyone, but I do ask you to honor them. Honor them by doing better, by being better, by continuing. I hear or heard that your class might not think that you all bonded. I am 35 years out, I guess, of leaving the Hill, and the bonds that I have formed continue today. I am a part of the lottery group with alumni, Alice, and the things that we talk about, the things we remember, the things we shake our head about, is great. So please understand that this is your Putney experience. And although you might have mixed feelings now, remember that there are many people who would have loved to be where you are. And there are many people who don't know what you have done or gone through. Every morning, I try to sit in silence and engender gratitude and love before I meditate. I close my eyes and I make a mental scan from my head. Well, actually, I go from my feet to my head. I wiggle my toes, I move my ankles, I move my knees, I think about my legs, my heart, my spleen, my lungs, my kidneys, my hearing, my sight, my smell, my taste, the gifts that we all just take for granted. So always remember that in any adversary, you have gratitude. There is much to be thankful for. I truly thank you for inviting me to share in this experience. And in my moments of gratitude, I will think of each of you. And I wish you all well. and thank you for enduring me.
So we've come to the time of diplomas. As I mentioned earlier, there are several students that weren't able to be here, and they have asked for somebody particular in the community to come and accept their diploma. And we're hoping that they're all watching right now on YouTube and can see their diploma being shown to that camera back there. Actually, before we start, I should tell you that these are in no particular order. So parents, grandparents, don't get nervous that we forgot somebody. Okay. Sophie Kelly Banks. Marcy Brickett Cummings. Noah Luna Bader. Bailey Casey. Edward Dana. Jaden Santana Lopez da Silva. Avalon Barkley Daniel Palmer. Hayden Samuel Collins. Charles Kerry Moody. Sophia Anna Monadori. Adeline Rose Bateman. Karan Satya Gupta. Kit Hannah Martin. Reed Ford Lefevre. Natasha Magdalena Belt. Leonard F. Griffin. Ledley William Laughlin. My favorite. Caroline Lambert Cook. Posey Rebecca DePaolo. Hannah Rose McCormick. Daniel Charles Snyder. Ava Perry Callan. Gabriel Sky Morehouse. Thank you very much. Ruby Mayim Goodman. Viva Vadim. Quinn Boss Muth. Jasmine Beckner Troll. Marushka Tess Rosner. Broden Cedar Walsh. Sadie Josephine Filipowski. Josiah Morrison Pennell. Leo Thurgood Lomas Bowman. Congratulations. Lisa Wang. Xinyi Peng. Willem John Kusser-Olaire. Islyn Rebecca Weinberg. Ayla Olivia Sigrid Bailey. Bela Buck Chickering. Janice Demings.
Thank you, Emily.
Sage McKay Enett. Michelle Lee Yang. Tula Grace Campman. Graham Arthur Mullen. Lingwen Zhang. Andres Kiger. Layla Adeline Rose Young. Malcolm Loomis Caridi.
Thank you. Thank you, Elsie. Oh my God.
Colin Nguyen Yap. Elijah Galway King Bond. Harlan Klein Simard Hum. Ray Scanlon Kamara. Shishira Sherlin Shao. Ian William Glazier.
Oh, wow.
Olivia Elizabeth Rival. Jaden Serene Hammond. James Flood Roberts. Isabel Grace Jones. Marcin Porter Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Larry King Chang. Magdalena Harper Sharp. Congratulations to the class of 2021. Go that way.